Alright, so I was asked yesterday by baby to put up a video of how I potty trained my daughter. Well, I didn't really potty train her per se. Kids are born potty trained, and when she was 7 days old, she peed. I was changing her diaper, and her diaper was kind of dry, and she peed outside the diaper like children do. My child's actually asleep. And so it's like, oh, she's ready, you know. Well, I waited until 8 days old because on day 7 I still had a lot of stitches and I was in a lot of pain, and um, I wasn't ready until she was about 8 days old. Some people started from day 1. I didn't start it from day 1. I wanted to start it from day 1, and we kind of did it on day 1. But because I went to the birthing center and I had my baby at 6:02 p.m. and then I went home. I was home before midnight, so I was only at the birthing center for about 5.5 hours, maybe 4 hours, because the birthing center is almost an hour away from my house and my old house, which is down the street from where I live now. And so yeah, like we were there for a good 5 hours. I took a shower before I left. I nursed my baby a lot. When she was first born, I just held her, and then I started nursing her, and she got a 9 out of 10 on the ABGAR test. After 5 minutes, she got a 9 out of 10. No, 1 minute and 5 minutes. She got a 9 out of 10 both times. So she did really good. She didn't have a high bilirubin or anything else like that. Her skin was perfect. Her eyes weren't yellow. Her skin wasn't yellow, like nothing like that. And I had her in the bathroom in a squatting position. I felt my water break. I was actually on the toilet at that point in time. I went from the bathtub to the toilet to the floor to have her. Like, I was on the toilet, and James followed me into the bathroom. And I'm like, have them draw me a bath because I knew it was going to run out of time. So they drew me a bath. I got to the bath for a little bit. I was squeezing my arms, pinching my arms to move the pain around my body a little bit more. And James is like, what are you doing? I'm like, we have an ABC sensory system. I need to move the pain a little bit. So I was moving when I had contractions, pain more towards like my arms, my upper body. I checked my own cervix to see how dilated I was and to see how much room I had between my cervix and my vaginal opening, and to see if I could, feel how far it would be apart. It's not very far. Like, if you check yourself, you're not very far from the opening when you have your child. It's only about that big from the top of your cervix to your vaginal opening. So it was really like, giving birth is really not as complicated as people make it out to be. It's not as painful as people make it out to be. It's really like, if you're willing to move around, to be okay with your own body, to touch yourself, to just, you have to be very aware of your own self. You have to be very, this is my body, this is my property, like, this is the only thing I own. So, like, when you're having a baby, just, like, own it, own yourself, own your body. That's yours. It's your property. You own it. You'll do whatever you want to. It's yours. And, so, yeah, I checked myself in the bathtub, and then I got out, and I was on the toilet, and I was facing towards the wall of the toilet, and I had the top rim part off, so this way I could do more of a squatting position. And I had two little, they have like the 1/2 inch. I wanted my squatty potty there, to be quite honest, but I forgot it. I actually didn't realize I was in labor. I thought it was Braxton Hicks I was in, because they're like, you will know when you're in labor. That's what Elizabeth told me at class. She's like, you will know when you're in labor. And I went to labor at 3 o'clock in the morning, that I know of. I probably was in labor before that, but I woke up at 3 in the morning. I was like, no, I think I'm in labor. And I went to the bathroom, and I lost more of my mucus plug. I was like, oh, James, I lost more of my mucus plug. He was taking a shower. We were watching MASH at the time. And I had fallen asleep. He woke me up. He let me give him a hug. And I stood up with him. And so, like, I found out that I lost a little more of my mucus plug, and I was having some contractions, but they weren't bad, and whatever. So, like, I went to sleep. I slept for as long as I could. I got up at 8. I called dispatch. Dispatch ran me into the midwife that was on call. She called me back. I'm like, I think I'm in labor. Not really sure. She was like, oh, you'll know if you're in labor. And I'm like, Okay, well, all right. And so I got off the phone with her, and I got James out the door. I made him coffee. I actually made him eggs that day, and a good lunch. And I sent him out to work. And after, like, obviously his clothes were already together and stuff, because back then I used to hang him on the door every day. And so he went off to work, and I was, doing laundry and on the washboard. I did a load of darks, I did a load of whites, I took out the cat litter. I was looking for my keys because I couldn't find them. And like my main set of keys, I couldn't find them at all. I took some photos of myself. Um, I was getting ready to go down to my ultrasound appointment because they wanted to do an ultrasound to make sure that my amniotic fluid wasn't leaking out. And I'm like, it's not leaking out. I know it's not leaking out. I know it's fine. But it was past due because my due date had already gone by. Due date, because I'm not actually due on that date. No one has a due date that they're due. The baby will know when you're due. Your body will know. Out of everyone in the world, trust your baby, trust your body. You got this. And so I'm looking for my keys, and then James calls me, and he's like, I hope you're not going anywhere. I'm like, I told you I have, a midwife appointment, and I have an ultrasound appointment, and I have to, go get an NST down at the midwives, and I have to go get the ultrasound before that. He's like, oh, well, I have your keys. And I had just done laundry at the laundromat the day before, and he was helping me bring in the baskets. Because I had done all the laundry, and I folded all the laundry, and he'd help me with the baskets sometimes. So he was helping me bring in the baskets, and he had my keys in his jacket from the day before. And so I'm like, I told you I was going to the midwives today. He's like, well, I have your keys. I'm like, well, I think I'm in labor anyway. And he is like, want me to bring you to the appointment? I'm like, no, just stay at work. It's no big deal. And he's like, no, I'll bring you to the appointment. He's like, how much pain are you in? He's like, are you resting? And I'm like, well, I took out the cat litter, and I did laundry, and making food, and I had some flaxseed with some granola for breakfast, and it was blueberry flaxseed granola. It was organic cereal I was eating at the time. And he was like, well, you're supposed to be resting, right? And I'm like, well, when the Amish, go into labor, they start cooking. That's like the first thing that they do. They get up, they start cooking, they let the time pass. He's like, yeah, but you're not actually Amish. You're not Amish at all. And I'm like, well, it doesn't matter. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to keep going and keep moving. And so I did. And so then he got home because he's like, oh, I'm just going to take you. I'm going to come home. Because I kept telling him, no, stay at work. Stay at work. I got it. It's no big deal. And so he comes home. And I'm like, okay, we got to go now because I'm going to be late to my appointments. I'm like, I don't want to go to this appointment anyway. And so we get into the car, and he grabs the car seat before we get to the car. So we have this car seat and a box in the back seat. It's not even hooked up. And I have myself, and I have my backpack, actually, that I'm using now is my diaper bag. It was my purse then. And so we get into the car, and I pull over at Wawa. I'm calling in again. I get Rob at dispatch, and I'm calling in for the midwife on call to not go to these appointments, because I'm like, I could just show up tomorrow, and tomorrow I'll have a baby, and because today I need to do some stuff, and then I need to get some stuff, just little odds and ends, put together for dinner and whatever I wanted to do. But I already had 3 months of dinners pre-made anyway. I had stromboli, and I had pizza. I had pepperoni pizza, and I had black olive pizza, and I had regular pizza, and I had spaghetti, and I had cheesecake with blueberry topping, a strawberry topping, and raspberry topping. And then I had basically I just made a bunch of food. I made a bunch of food, and every time I was cooking, whatever I had left over, I stored in my chest freezer. That's how we got it. So that when I was having a child, I had 3 months of meals prepared, and I actually had 3 months of supplies in my house. So I didn't have to leave my house until my daughter was about 4 months old. I had no reason to leave my house until my daughter was 3 or 4 months old. I actually moved when she was 3 months old. So, we moved everything, all of our supplies we moved over. I wound up giving pancakes away to Couture and Quentin and Mike because they were over helping, and I gave away some chicken wing stromboli, and I gave away some soup, like all my supplies. I was like, okay, well, you guys help me move, take some food home with you. I gave them care packages for helping me move. Anyway, going back to James coming home. James came home. We stopped by the Wawa. I didn't want to go to these appointments. I didn't hear from the midwife on call back until we were already like on the turnpike. So I'm like, okay, let's just go. We have to go to these appointments, whatever. I don't even want to go. So we went to the ultrasound place, and then from the ultrasound place, they, she did the ultrasound in my stomach, and they showed me Karina was perfect, and the amniotic fluid was not leaking, and there was no crystallization, and there was nothing wrong with it. And I was like, see, I knew it. I'm fine. I know I'm fine. I do not want these ultrasounds. So then she let me go back, and I got dressed, and then we left the ultrasound place, and we went to the midwives. They put me in the yellow room. I got to lay down in the yellow room, and they hooked up the NST, and it showed that I was in labor. And they were like, oh, look, someone might be having a baby today. And I was like, yeah, maybe tomorrow. Yeah, I was actually on the phone with Amber, and I got off the phone with her, and they're like, oh, yeah, looks like you're in labor. And I'm like, yeah, see, I thought so. And I'm like, it might just be Braxton Hicks, though, because I wasn't showing any physical signs of pain or anything else like that. I actually wanted to be on, I actually wanted it recorded for their video, because I handle pain very well. And as I get older, it's not as well as what I used to when I was a kid, but I do handle pain very well. And then, so she left. I was on the machine for like another 15 minutes. I called back Amber. I talked to her. And then after the NST, which was like 45 minutes long, I went upstairs to just get checked out. And like they gave me another script for another ultrasound. So I was 43 weeks and 4 days. And they wanted me to have another ultrasound to get looked at just to make sure everything was good again. I'm like, I know it's going to be fine. And so they gave me a script, and they asked me how I was doing. They took my blood pressure, and like everything was good. And which is funny because my blood pressure at the time was going up and down. I had white coat syndrome, so sometimes my blood pressure would be 150 over 110 or 160 over 120. And so they had to do lab work to make sure my liver counts were good, to make sure that it was actually white coat syndrome. There's no problems, because I have a pressure cuff in my bathroom that I was using every day. Just to make sure that my pressure was good. And it was always good until I got to the midwives, and then it would spike because I was nervous. So like I was nervous that they were going to kick me out for any little reason, whatever. And so my pressure that day was good. And so then Melissa was like, well, you want me to check you before you go? And I'm like, I refused all internal checks. But I guess, yeah, you could check me now before I go. Why not? And so she checked me, and she's like, you're 6 centimeters. I think I'm wrong. She's like, let me go and get a second opinion. So she left out the door. She went and she got Alexandria. Alexandria came in. Alexandria checked me. And she looks at Melissa and she goes, oh no, you're right. She's 6 centimeters. And so we're like, okay, well, we'll go home and we'll grab the stuff that we want and we'll come back. And, they're like, you're not going to make it home. I'm like, okay. So then they left the room, and then boom, I was on the floor in a squatting position, like over the chair. Like I was literally like, the chair was next to the desk was on this side, and I went like this for my next contraction because it actually did hurt after the check. So like I was actually down on, like in a squatting position on the chair, and I was gripping onto the blue cover that they had on the chair that they were using. And so then they came back into the room. I'm like, okay, it got a lot more painful, and I think it's because you guys checked me. And they're like, oh yeah, it probably is because we checked you. And I'm like, oh, well, I would have refused the check then. Like, that sucks. So they're like, okay, well, we're going to take you down to the birthing room. They're like, does it matter what color you get for the birthing room? Because they have a yellow room, they have a green room, and they have a pink room, I believe. I think they might have a blue room, too. And I'm like, color of the room doesn't matter to me. So we get into the elevator and realize I left my water bottle. I actually was passing by Lynn, and Lynn was like, Mindy, what day did you keep saying you were going to have that baby? And I'm like, the 10th. And she's like, what day is it today? I'm like, the 10th. She's like, it might be someone's birthday. Lynn actually died not too long ago, too. She was apparently really sick. I just didn't know it. Squish. Hey, you. He's eating the carpet. Let me go nick this. Hey. No. And, don't do that, buddy. You're going to get sick. And so I get into the elevator, and we're talking, and I told them about my water bottle, and they said they'd go back and get it. And so we get down to the room, and everyone's standing in a circle in the actual room itself. I excused myself to go to the bathroom, and James was like, "You want me to, come with you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, come with me." So I'm sitting on the toilet in the bathroom, and I look at the bathtub. I'm like, "James, go and ask them to run me a bath." So he did, and then they came back in. They were running me bath water, and so I'm like, "I want to go into that bathtub." And so James was in the room. I went to the bathtub, and James was like, "You're not gonna take your bra off?" And I'm like, "Well, no, I was already naked. I already stripped down to like nothing because I wanted to be in the bathtub." And so I did. I took my bra off. I kept my socks on because my socks are really, really dry. Like my hands are really dry, so it's hard to like touch things with my feet or touch things with my hands. So my skin's really dry. And you're not eating that carpet again, are you? You're watching like a hawk. And be good. Be good. Come here. And so anyway, so I'm in the bathroom. I'm in the bathtub. I start pitching my arms. I felt my cervix, how dilated I was, and how far away it was, and so it wasn't that far. So I'm like, okay, I got this. I could do this. There's no turning back now anyway. So I stayed in the bathtub. They went in. They checked me. I was fine. They checked me again. Like they checked me like 4 times while I was in the bathtub. Just like they put the thing in my stomach. It's because I wasn't hooked up to anything. I just had free movement, free motion. I wasn't hooked to like a bed or anything like that. Obviously, I was in the bathroom in the bathtub. And so they checked me a few times. The baby was doing perfect. And so I got out of the bathtub. I went to the toilet. I was facing the wall. Like, I was this way on the toilet instead of the other way on the toilet. So I was facing the tank and the wall. And then I started throwing up my food, and I'm rocking, and I'm watching the clock tick. I'm not watching the time, but I'm watching the seconds. And, I don't know why he's eating carpet today. His stomach must hurt. Oh, my baby. Let's keep you out of trouble for a couple seconds. And so I'm watching the clock tick, and I'm swaying back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I have like every midwife that's there in the bathroom, in the entrance of the bathroom and stuff while I'm on the toilet, because they had a shift change and no one else was in labor that day. So it was just me. It was just me. No one else was there, and Anna was my main midwife, and she had a student with her. And, it was shift change, so we had other midwives, and so then I got the pressure feeling. I'm like, oh, my water's gonna break. So I flushed the toilet twice, and by this time I actually turned around, so I'm in the front. Because after I threw up a few times, they're like, oh, this is a good sign. Don't worry about it. I'm like, oh, I'm fine with throwing up. That's fine. And I filled up two little pails that they gave me. They gave me bowls, the metal bowls to throw up in. I threw up in 2 of those, and then I turned around. And now I'm swaying back and forth, and I'm swaying, I'm pinching my arms. And I'm going, and I'm saying to myself, I'm going to open wide, 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 over and over again. And then I tore, and then I started screaming. So her head, my water broke, and then her head started coming down. And then I tore, and then I started screaming. That's when it actually started to hurt. Because it didn't hurt, it burns. It burns really, really badly. And then after I tore, I got down off the toilet, and I got onto the floor, and I got on all fours, and I pushed my baby out. And it was awesome. And then after I pushed her out, I actually caught her. And then I held her up to my chest, and I stood up, and I walked to the bed, and I laid down. And then they stitched me up, and I was crying, and I was like, I'm so glad you're out. Like, that's what I kept saying. I am so glad you're out. I am so glad you're out. You're so beautiful. I'm so glad you're out. And that's it. I had my daughter. My Karina is awesome. I love her so much, and I will definitely do the same birth experience again. I'm going to move up my due date, just like due date. Gotta love it. Just like I did with my last one, because my body knows best. And I am going to have the best birthing experience ever with just having my baby. When I was 37 weeks pregnant, so I was actually 39 weeks pregnant, um, I my pressure was high, and it was before they did the lab results for my liver. They wanted to actually pull me and do um, a um, a Pitocin birth, like assisted birth, and I was just like, nope. And they're like, do you understand the risks that you're, ensuing here? And I'm like, oh, absolutely. I'm like, my placenta could detach and I could smother my baby. It's the same thing as being a smoker. And they're like, yep, that's right. And they're like, as long as you know your risks, you're good to go home. So I did the NST from 37 weeks on. I did 2 NSTs before I had her in the day of my birth. The day of her birth, I did an NST. So I did 3 altogether. I did 1, 2, 3, 4 ultrasounds altogether. I did the 20-week ultrasound. I did a 8-week ultrasound. And I did the last day ultrasound. And there was an ultrasound. I went to the doctor and they did like a 2-second ultrasound just to prove I was there. And I'm like, I don't want an ultrasound. And they're like, oh, well, you have to because you're here. We're just going to do it real quick. And they did an ultrasound. I'm like, I don't want an ultrasound. Like, so I didn't stay at that hospital because they didn't listen to me. And they're like, oh, well, you're not going to listen to us, obviously. I'm like, of course not. Of course I'm not going to listen to you. You guys don't have any information I want. So, like, you guys don't believe what I believe. You guys want me to... They were literally going to pull me early, which would have been really early because they were going to pull me in March, in the middle, like middle of March. They wanted to pull me to have my daughter. And I was like, no, because at that point in time, they estimated my due date to be by like the middle to end of March. My due date originally was March 18th, 17th, and then I kept moving my due date up to August 1st. So, and yeah, but this lady was gonna pull me like right around my birthday, around like the 4th, to have my baby. I didn't have my baby until April 10th. My baby would have been small, like, and she was like, oh, well, you're short, and you're not gonna be able to have a baby on your own. I'm like, my body creates the baby, my body can have the baby, so no idea what you're talking about. I think that my due date interfered with her probably scheduled vacation time or whatever. So, but yeah, then I went to my midwife appointment, and my midwife was like, Kathy was like, that's the highest C-section rate hospital in this area. She's like, I take everyone who's, having problems and needs a C-section to that hospital because they do the best lines. I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't stay with them. Like, nope. So anyway, I had my baby. She had a 9 out of 10 on the Apgar test after 1 minute. She had 9 out of 10 on the Apgar test after 5 minutes. She smiled that very day. I got to feed her. No one touched her for a couple hours. James held her after a few hours, too. After about 5.5 hours, we went home. Maybe 5 hours, we went home. And we were home by midnight. Squish got to meet her. And, we did a little meet and greet with Kat. And, we went to bed. James stayed up playing video games, and Karina and I went to bed. And then the next day, the midwife came out, and, James was sleeping, and I was like, yeah, he was up all night. She was like, with the baby? And I'm like, playing video games? And she was like, oh, video games. I'm like, yeah, video games. And so she took a tour around my house, and she wouldn't eat anything, though, because she was pregnant herself, so the smells probably, whatever, got to her or whatever. She doesn't eat anything from anyone's house, though. So she wouldn't eat my food, she wouldn't take my food home. I was like, oh, it's all good. And, so Susan came to my house, though, and she was really nice. And then she had her doctor's appointment at 6 days old. Her umbilical cord fell off at 6 days old, and then at 7 days old she peed. Like, I was changing her diaper and she peed all over the table. I was changing her on the table out here, but it was, like, the old house is in my kitchen. And I was like, oh, it's time to do the elimination communication. And so I did. I started putting her on the potty right away. I actually have a video called Potty Time when she was 13 days old, and you could hear her going potty on the potty at that point in time. I don't have any potty videos or any potty pictures because I do not record potty time. I do not take photos of potty time. I do not share photos or recordings of potty time. But really, all you do is you put your kid over the potty, right? You go pss, pss for pee pee, and you go for poo poos. This way, there's two different noises and there's two different signals for what they're doing, and they get very used to it very quickly. My daughter has been refusing to go potty in her diaper since about 2 months old. And I force her to go potty in her diaper because she has to. She has to be able to go potty in the diaper too because it's another resource that she has that she should be utilizing. She doesn't like to go potty in her diaper probably because it's either heavy or uncomfortable or cold or like warmer than cold. I don't know. But I change her out as quickly as possible. After each diaper change, she does go on the potty. She gets rewarded for going on the potty. She gets rewarded for going in her diaper. Sometimes I have to force her to go potty in her diaper just so that she'll continue doing it every once in a while because I need her to do it. So yeah, she's been using her natural instincts since she's been born. It's called Elimination communication. You could look it up, and it's awesome. And I will do it with every single child I have because it's the best. For me, it's personally the best option I could be doing with my children. We don't have a lot of money. We don't have a lot of, like, I do have the time to potty train later, but I couldn't imagine making my kid go potty in a diaper every single time they have to go potty. Like, for me, it's just not the right choice. For someone else, it might be the absolute right choice. For me, it's not. And everyone at the end is going to be like, oh, this is my parenting style. This is what I did, and it worked for me. I could imagine doing something else. So, everyone has a right choice for them. And, I co-slept from day one. She never slept on her own. Like, I put her, when we got home, into a co-sleeper for about 5 minutes. She started crying, and I missed her as well because I was so used to having her in my womb and feeling her move around and stretch and kick and hiccup and all that stuff all night. So I literally, I got home, James was on the video games, I'm like, we are going to bed. I am tired. And so I put her in the co-sleeper. I got her dressed, put her in the co-sleeper, and she was even in her sleeper, and I went to lay down in bed, and my baby started crying, and I picked her up, and I went to the living room. I'm like, I know you're not okay with co-sleeping, but I am, and you're not even in the bed. I am co-sleeping with my child. And James was like, that makes me nervous, but he's like, I can't stop you, and, if you think you're going to be okay with it, that's fine. So he's like, I'm going to stay up all night, and I'm going to come and check on you guys every once in a while, and I'm going to play video games. I'm like, okay. So he said that he went and he checked on us a few times. He said every time he checked on us, we were fine. Like, she actually was crying in the morning. It was about 7:30. And I was up with her already, and she was crying. And, James came in after about, 20 minutes, was like, oh, you're up. And I'm like, well, yeah, of course I'm up. My daughter's crying, And he was like, oh, I just wanted to check on you. So I guess his quest ended, and he wanted to come in to check on us. And which was sweet. So that's actually James right now.